Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and I have a big group of people today on the Fun Ideas podcast. Who I have with me, I will introduce, is the 60s pop group, the Cyrkle. They've reunited
Yay.
specifically just for the show. No, 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 no. They've done a new album, and I also have with us the producer of the new album, and he's been a guest many times, Dan Coston. And I'm going to switch it over to Pat McLaughlin, so you can introduce everyone in
Sure.
the band because I don't know everybody by sight and name at the same time.
I can understand that. And if it's okay with you, Mark, I'm going to introduce everybody in alphabetical order according to height.
Sounds good.
So I don't know how people are shown on the stage here, but we'll start with our lead guitar player, Don White. Don, wave so they know it's you. And then our drummer is Scott Langley. There he is right there waving. On bass guitar is Dean Castran, calling in from Mansfield, Ohio tonight, cold Mansfield. And then we also have the keyboard player, one of the founding members of the band, Mike Loskamp. And then with the gentleman in the far, well, it's on my screen, he's to the right, and wearing the Cyrkle hat is the true founding member. He started the band before it was the Cyrkle, Don Daneman, everybody. All right, so I hand the ball back to you, Mark, and we'll answer questions as you like.
You need to introduce yourself. What do you do?
Oh, excuse me. I'm I even got my name memorized. It's Pat McLaughlin, and I'm vocalist, hand percussion, and guitar.
Very good. Okay. All right. It's going to be odd talking to so many people at once. So I don't know who to send this around to, but it might be for Don because he was there.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how the Cyrkle came about, and also how you changed your name, or where you got the Rondelles in the first place, and how it changed to the Cyrkle.
Okay, the Rondelles basically was a college fraternity band. We started at a freshman mixer in 1961, and we just, the guys got to, a random thing happened when the guys got together during the break of the regular band, and we started a band. Did really well. We were the fraternity band to get. In 1964, we bought long-haired wigs and did a Beatles show. And it went over so well. And basically, without going into long, gory details, it got us to Atlantic City. It got us to the Alibi Bar. It got us heard by Nat Weiss. Excuse me, I'm chewing gum and I'm going to get rid of it.
Okay.
It got us heard by Nat Weiss, partner to Beatle manager Brian Epstein. It got us a management contract with them. It got us a Columbia record contract. It got us to hear Red Rubber Ball. And it got us on the Beatles tour, and it got us our name.
Wow.
In our show, we talk about some of the details of that, including how we got our name when Brian, because we were still the Rondelles at Lafayette College, and Brian came into the studio and handed me a business card. On the card, it said Brian Epstein, standard business card. On the back was a scribble, Cyrkle, I don't know what it is, you know, I didn't read. And basically he said, in a charming English accent, "Oh, Don, read the back. Notice it's the Cyrkle, Cyrkle, and it has the funny spelling, and it was John that came up with the spelling." And he asked the boys in Britain to come up with a name for their new American group, and it was John that came up with Cyrkle, Cyrkle. In a nutshell, in a 1 minute synopsis, that's kind of the story.
Very cool. And did you ever meet? Well, I guess that's a dumb question. The question next would be, since you went on tour with the Beatles in '66, did you meet up with them? Did you hang out with them, or were you kind of like your own separate thing? These are the Beatles, and you're over here. And, anybody can answer these if they, if they're part of the thing too. So yeah, but go ahead.
Well, I was the only one there.
Yeah. Okay. I know so far. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry about that, but when we'll get to other things where the other guys can answer. But basically, there's also stories that go on in the show. But in a nutshell, they were in part walled off, and we didn't, and yet we also did. The first meeting, we met Paul on the plane, and it was very cordial. We got to shake hands, and he seemed to be a pretty good guy. We got to the first actual formal meeting was it wasn't actually until the third show, and they called us back in the dressing room, and we got to actually meet all four and sit around and shake hands and chat. And I ended up with a very lovely, warm, nice chat with George, actually. Yeah, he was a very warm, sweet guy. And at various times we would get to hang out, just thinking back, playing cards with Paul and Ringo. Just a bunch of guys playing cards. They were very cognizant of, we're Beatles, but we're regular guys too.
Right.
Like that. John Lennon, every once in a while, he'd walk over and said, "You guys learned to spell yet?" As in the name of the spelling he would do. So yeah, we got to hang a bit. Yeah.
That's good. Did you also get to hang with Brian Epstein as well?
The
tour? Okay. So he was he like a real manager, or was he just like, get on the plane, let's go, whatever, I mean.
Well, he was in England, of course, and he was back and forth.
Yeah.
He did overseeing, but the hands-on manager was his partner, Nat Weiss, who was an American lawyer. And they had an office, Nemperor Records, Nemperor Artists was their name. And Nat was a great guy. We loved him a lot.
Now, when you did those 66 concerts, what were they like? I mean, I've heard recordings just of the Beatles material on certain dates, like Candlestick Park and a few others. But did the girls scream the entire time, or did they just do it for the Beatles, or was it sporadic? What was going on there? Because they never really talk about what was going on with the other groups. It's always Beatles, Beatles, Beatles.
Well, I will share two things. Okay, the first one is at the first concert, which was Chicago. And we were really nervous to go on because we thought exactly what you're thinking. Oh, we want the Beatles, get them off, boo, boo, boo. No, they whooped and hollered and cheered when we went on. Now, we did actually have 2 hit records at the time. So when they announced us, we were very pleasantly surprised to hear whoops and hollers and very enthusiastic, yay, great, wow, so we did okay. And then once we heard that, we could play and relax. It was pretty nice. The one other thing that I will share with you, and they were all that way, by the way, all the concerts were that way, but the one other thing that really was a killer is that I think it was St. Louis, it was threatening rain. And right before we were supposed to go on, they yanked us. And they said, sorry, guys, we got to get the Beatles on. It might rain. So, of course, it was a drag, but we understood, no problem. Anyway, the Beatles finished up and it wasn't raining yet. And so they said, all right, guys, you're going on. And we looked at them, we said, you're kidding. We're going to follow the Beatles? Yep, you're going to follow the Beatles. So we went on. And I never thought about this. So I'll tell it as I would tell it to myself. And then I'm going to quote bandmate Pat, who actually brought this up. I would say we played to, a lot, of course, people are shuffling out as we're playing, but I would say about at least a third stayed and cheered. And we played to a good third of that audience with great applause and cheers. And it was really cool. And I never thought, my feeling was, okay, we're just playing to a third of these people. Well, what Pat said to me when I told him this story is, Don, are you kidding? You played for 20,000 people. and they cheered and hollered and stayed. You did great.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did.
So I will show my copy of your first big hit, Red Rubber Ball, in a nice mint picture sleeve from Columbia Records.
Oh, it looks
Little
like
ring wear, and then Daniel
Ooh.
has the red vinyl promo. Ooh,
Wow.
yeah, mine's only on
Yeah.
black vinyl. So anyway, I'll probably ask other questions later if we get time, but just want to keep moving on. So you had your first album, which was called, what was the first album called? I don't have it written
Red
down.
Rubber Ball.
It was
It's
just
Red
called Red
Rubber Ball.
Rubber Ball. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just Greatest Hits. And then the second one was called Neon. And
Yes.
then that's when this other gentleman to my right, at least the way I see it, Mike came into the picture. So how did that come about?
I actually joined the group in 1966, maybe late September of '66, and at that point they were in the process of recording the Neon album. And the way that happened, a friend of mine who was in the Remains, was the drummer for the Remains, N.D. Smart. He is the one who talked to them about and gave them my name, because he knew that they needed a keyboard player to replace Earl Pickens, who was leaving to continue medical school. So that's how I ended up, being there. One day I was in Dayton, Ohio, playing at the Diamond Club, and about a week later I was in New York. So and they were recording at the time, so I was involved with that, and I got to do my first actual lead vocal on an album, on The Visit, which on the Neon album. So
And we recorded now. We re-recorded that song too.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And it's different now on the re-record. It's like with the digital equipment, it just sounds better. I don't know why, but I guess because of the equipment. Yeah.
Well,
But that's how I came.
a few
to be
more
with the
years
group.
of technology there, but
Right. Only 50 years. Yeah.
Hey, if I could chime in,
sure.
When Mike joined the band, he had big shoes to fulfill, because we did a lot of vocals, harmony, the keyboards, some of the keyboard parts. Well, even just the keyboard on Turn Down Day, the middle. And he picked that right up, So Mike was a real find. We were very happy to get him.
Yeah.
Cool. And now that I've listened to all the albums, I actually prefer the Neon album over the first one. Sorry, but and it's like that. But the inevitable question is, was Columbia dissatisfied, or why was there not a quick third follow-up or a continuation? It just seemed like there was like a soundtrack and then a couple singles, and then it just kind of drifted off. What happened at that point?
Well, basically what happened is, even though our recordings, and I think you bear it out by saying you like Neon better than Red Rubber Ball, the recordings and the technique, we got more professional, we got better, and more sophisticated. But there is something about, there are certain songs that for whatever reason, they have amazing magic. And there's something about Red Rubber Ball and Turn Down Day that had that magic. And for some reason, you can't really put like a number on it or whatever. After that, it's like the magic wasn't fully there. The professionalism, the quality was all there, all really good, but the magic just wasn't quite right there. So hard to say. And so what we found is that every single release sold less than the one before it. And it just was a gradual, if you look at a graph, it just goes right down, And so we got a little dissatisfied. We broke up. We just went our separate ways.
Mark, I also have an opinion from a higher view. And I think the past, you asked about, well, why didn't things continue on? And I think the death of Brian Epstein not only hurt the Cyrkle, but it also hurt Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas and Jerry and the Pacemakers and Cilla Black and, Fortunes. All those bands really didn't have any success after Epstein's passing. And it's, I think in part because there was really no band leadership at that point, certainly not a business sense. And ultimately, I think that's the reason the Beatles fall apart.
Yeah, I never really thought about it that way because I always think of just the type of music was changing, but the Cyrkle seemed to be keeping on. Neon
Right.
seemed to be right in style with what was going on in '67. So
Yeah.
And listen to their later singles up to Reading Her Paper and other
yeah.
songs. Those are really great songs. My favorite single from the Cyrkle is actually I Wish You Could Be Here, backed with The Visit. For me, that is my favorite Cyrkle single. It just, for whatever reason, timing or whatever, just didn't go higher up the charts than it should have. So the 60s was a very competitive time.
Mhm.
That's true. And if you look at the Columbia record label at that time, they had Paul Simon and Simon and Garfunkel. They had the Byrds, Paul Revere and the Raiders. They had Bob Dylan. They had Aretha Franklin. They've got a budget. Who's going to get the monies that they divvy out? I suspect marketing probably didn't divvy as much out to the Cyrkle as they might have did for the acts I just said. And there are a lot of other acts that didn't get money.
And of course,
from
there's up
Cyrkle.
and coming ones like Chicago and things like that started.
Right.
Yeah.
The
So
Crying
Crying
Shame, the Crying
Yeah.
Shames is a good example. The Crying Shames were a really good band that really put out great content, but you wouldn't know it. I don't think Columbia really got behind them money-wise.
Yeah.
So
But I do have a copy of what I consider your best single. It's the Camaro single. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
Mine's over there.
Tell us a little bit about how this one came about, and also there was a 7-Up one, if you don't mind. How did these commercial endorsements come about?
Okay, Camaro. We didn't know anything about anything. All we knew was we were told, I think, by our producer John Simon, hey, show up at the studio one day. And he had done a track, and he said, okay, sing it. And he showed us what to do. And we sang this, what is it? For a Ponzi, it's Camaro. I haven't listened to it in a really long time. Anyway, so that actually was the beginning, although we didn't know it or didn't even hardly think of it, but it was the beginning for bandmate Tom Dawes and I, as the group broke up, to get into commercials. Now, Tom was, as the group was breaking up, Tom was ahead of me. I will totally admit that. He led the way. And he started, I'm not sure if he did it on his own or did he bug Nat to get him to do a commercial. But Tom said, hey, I'm writing a commercial for 7-Up. Same deal, show up in the studio. And we showed up and we sang it. And actually, it is me singing the opening lead on it. What was it? 7-Up, 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 the young cola. Yeah, that's me. And anyway, and that was the beginning of him starting his commercial production company. And I felt and realizing, hey, this sounds like a pretty neat thing as the group is breaking up and trying to figure out what am I going to do for the rest of my life. So I started a commercial production company, and we both did really well. We had nice careers.
Right. I didn't know it was like immediately after, but that makes perfect sense. If you're already doing these type of promo spots and you go, money to be made here in a career.
Yeah, there was one other one pre us doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And that was a commercial for Great Shakes. Any place can be a soda fountain now with Great Shakes, new Great Shakes. That was a commercial that was done by many rock bands.
Yes.
And also, same deal. One day they said, hey, show up in the studio. And there was a band of studio musicians there and producers who were already, people doing what we ended up doing, guys that had a production company. They had done the arrangement and they told us what to sing, and there it was. And I would love to get a copy of it. If anyone is listening out there that has a copy of the Cyrkle doing Great Shakes, I have heard many other bands doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, including recently, not that long ago. Copies exist.
Yeah.
Not ours. I don't know.
I
I'd
had
love to
no
get
idea you did it, but I did know
Yeah.
people did the Great Shakes ones, and
Love to
you
get a
know,
copy of it.
and
yeah.
it's funny in the '60s, is just like different bands just did that. Like the Rolling Stones did for Rice Krispies, and
Yeah.
well, even on this same record, it's Paul Revere and the Raiders on the other side doing
Yeah,
Camaro.
yeah.
Turtles did Camaro, and let's see. Jefferson Airplane did Levi's, just various
What?
different ones. Yeah,
Hey,
that one
Don,
they did.
Don, you forgot about the United Way commercial you guys did.
Oh, okay. How did it go? I don't even remember that. But now that you say it, yeah, it sort of rings a bell, but I don't know. If you know it, sing it to me. I'll tell you if I remember it.
I have an air check from Boston, I think in late '67, where they ran that. I will send that to you.
Send it to me. Yeah. Send
Okay.
it to me.
So, Mike, what did you do during this when everything was breaking up?
Well, I decided to go back to Dayton, and where I was from, Dayton, Ohio, and we formed a new group there called Green Light Sunday, and that group went on to have an album released on RCA in early 1970. And I was writing original tunes back then, and we had a lot of original songs on that album. And then since then, I kept playing. You know, I was with that band for 12 years up until 1980, and then I went on, and I finally got a real job with the phone company. And but then I would work with groups. So I worked with groups every week, every month, you know, clear up until after retiring. And then I really got back into it even heavier. And so after 29, 30 years of working, I got back to actually being able to, you know, not have to rush around and to get places, and had some time to actually enjoy myself. So, and that's what I'm doing now, I guess.
Now, you were the one who got this motley crew back together, correct? Basically.
Well, actually, Pat had a lot to do with it. Pat came to me, and because we worked together at AT&T, and he came to me and said, "Have you ever thought about, you know, going out on tour and as a reunited Cyrkle?" And so we talked a little bit about it, and I said I wondered about the name, and Pat said that he was willing to like investigate to see if he could get control of the name, and which he did. And then he came back to me and said, "Hey, I got control of the name." So he asked me if I knew of any of the other players that the members, had I been in touch with them? No, I hadn't been. So, and so aside from the fact that by email one time when Tommy Dawes passed away, I had sent an email to Don, and I didn't even remember what it said, but anyway, that was the only contact. So we got together at my house, and we were sitting at a table, me and Pat, and we were trying to find Don. For some reason, we couldn't find him. So,
Yeah.
and we eventually, we went through a whole list of names. I think there was like 6 or 7 names and numbers to call. We were trying to locate Don's ex-wife. And the last number we called, she answered, and it was her. So, and Pat he'll have to tell you about the discussion he had with her, but he talked with her and got a hold of his son's, I guess his telephone number.
Right.
Where we were texting him, and he responded and gave the information to Don, and then that's how we got back together. Don gave, I think, I don't know how it said to call Don at a certain time, or I don't even remember the exact sequence now, but I ended up calling Don, and then Don got in touch with me one night, and then we just talked about it and decided to reunite. We already had a band in Columbus, where I'm living now, that band called Gas Pump Jockeys, and me and Pat were in that band, and Scott was also in that band, and we had that already together. So we had like kind of a core band. So with me and Don being the original members, or I wasn't exactly the original member, but I was there in '66. So me and Don being there, we were able to convince people that we were the Cyrkle, and we reunited.
Don't forget, Don White was in that Gas Pump Jockeys too. Mike.
That's right. Yeah. Sorry, Don, I forgot about you.
I'll never forgive you.
So I guess you know, and then there was a couple other members, correct, that you had or that have since passed since you
Yeah,
got
Uh,
together.
Yeah,
What-
we've had some
Yeah.
unfortunate luck with bass players in particular.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we've lost 2 to cancer, 1 sadly to a car accident who had a heart attack while he was driving and crashed into a bridge embankment or embankment, whatever that word is that holds the bridge up. And so Dean here, he wasn't sure he wanted to join the band. I don't blame him. We actually had someone before Dean also, and the first show he did with these guys, he had a minor stroke, and it was like,
Oh, yeah.
so
I was on stage too.
it was
We
on
were-
stage, yeah. So we were genuinely worried about Dean's well-being, but he seems to be holding up okay so far after 15 months with us.
Okay.
You
So
can
this
tell
is,
them about the, you can tell them about the bass player that spontaneously combusted on stage.
That's later. We're dedicating the album the hit to him later. Mama
Yeah.
Best, I believe so. That's his name. Yes.
That's right.
so did everyone currently here play on this brand new album or okay, so
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
did anybody who has passed also play on the album too? I don't know everyone that played.
No, only Mike Schoaf came in and did a few
Yeah.
things pre-COVID. He left right after COVID ended. Basically, I don't know where your COVID line is, but he needed to go work and do other things now to make up the money he lost.
Yeah.
And that's how we were lucky enough to get Dean. But he's on 4 of the cuts or 5 of the cuts from the pre-COVID recordings.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, he's on 4 tracks on this album. But
Okay.
I should mention too that since we mentioned Tom Dawes, he is on 2 tracks on this new album via a recording that he did with my friend Andrew Sandoval in
That's right.
2003.
That's right. We
Isn't
did
that
this-
amazing? I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
So I can tell you how that happened was
Yeah.
I knew about that track from a CD that Andrew had given me at South by Southwest in Texas about 20 years ago. And one night I was looking for another CD in this office and that CD popped out and I went, oh yeah, okay. So I wrote Andrew and said, here's a crazy idea. And he said, actually, I just transferred all those tracks to Pro Tools. Do you want them? I said, yes, I'd love those. It took about 8 months of gentle reminding to get Andrew to send me the tracks. But when he did, I said, Don, I think I've got something. I actually originally gave Andrew's original recording of He Can Fly to Don and said, I'm not going to tell you anything about this song. Just listen to it and tell me what you think. He said, he wrote me back. I said, oh, I think I like this. It's a decent song. I said, you recognize the background harmonies? It's Tom. And that just got the ball rolling. I will tell you that that part of this new album has just been a dream for me to watch that come to fruition.
It was very, very mind-blowingly special when Daniel told me that the background vocals of this song that he just randomly sent me, because he didn't say anything about it. He just said, listen, here, what do you think? And when he said, hey, the background vocals are bandmate Tommy Dawes, I went, oh my God. And because I had a thought after he died, and I never did anything about it, but the thought was, wouldn't it be great to see if I can find any old recordings of his and use his vocals and write a song that had something to do with us, that was personal, and sing with him again.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I told this to Daniel, and Daniel got permission from Mark Sandoval to do it, to say, yeah, do whatever you want with it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I got Tommy's vocal tracks, and the only actual word he sang was fly. And so I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How can I do? And I ended up with a song called We Thought We Could Fly. And basically it's our history, starting from the rondelles at that first, freshman mixer that I mentioned before. And, of course you can't do everything in a song, but it kind of quickly goes through what we did, the history, including the fact that we were about to start a band as retirees in 2007, and he dies on me. And it was really sad. So I was able to lay out the vocals. I had to change pitches in a few places to change chords to make it work. And I was so thrilled to be able to do a song. And we put together a video where I lip synced in a bunch of different ways on camera. And we supered all sorts of pictures of Tommy, moving around back and forth and all kinds of stuff, including playing together on some videos. And it was just thrilling for me to do. And then Andrew asked in this process, hey, would you mind re-singing the lead on his original song that started the whole process? And I was thrilled to do it. I mean, I thought he did a good job, and I was a little nervous, like, oh, I don't know, will I really do any better? And it was 1 or 2 takes. I blew myself away because it was a good vocal. And there I was singing with Tommy again. So very cool. So there's 2 songs where I get to sing with deceased bandmate Tommy Dawes.
Very cool.
Yeah, he sent the track to me and Andrew late one night. I was at a show. I ended up leaving the show early and running home and playing it on my phone. I think I played it 7 times in a row. I was just, this is a fan, as somebody who loves this music. This was just like, this is really happening. This whole record is really happening.
Yeah. And Mark, I'd like to point out that you've seen Natalie Cole singing with her father. You see Hank Williams Jr. singing with his father. And the Beatles certainly made an effort to take a Lennon composition, but Don created a whole new song and then put his deceased bandmate in the song. That's to my knowledge, never been done before.
Yeah.
And I knew Don was capable of doing that. That's one of the reasons why I didn't tell him who it was when I first sent him the song. I wanted him to hear it with his own ears and start thinking about it as he got more information. So yeah.
It was an amazing process for me. And Daniel, thank you for sending it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, in this entire album, what was the time period? Because I mean, we've had like stops and starts as a pandemic and everything. From when did you first conceive of doing a new studio album to now it's complete?
You want to take that one, Daniel?
I'll take that one.
Okay.
So I first saw the Cyrkle in Van Wert, Ohio, which is as remote as it sounds, in the summer of 2018. I think it was your first headline show. You guys did 2 sets that night.
Yeah.
And I drove 10 hours, saw the show, photographed the show.
Daniel, say again when you heard us. I think you said 22.
Sorry, summer 2018. I want to say it was June.
18, yeah, I think was that, 18, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in Van Wert. And I initially was going to pitch an idea of a book, a story of the Cyrkle to them. And then this whole thing of, well, the book's nice, but I really want to hear a new record. And I've always felt that creatively you create the things it'd be cool if somebody else made a new album by the Cyrkle, then you realize it's you that should make or oversee this. So I eventually brought it to Don and Mike and Pat in the band and said, here's a crazy idea. What if you got to make the record that you didn't get to make in the late 60s? And that was the initial jumping off point. It's like, you don't have to create something that sounds exactly like something they would have made in 1960, but it's a counterpart. It is the Cyrkle taken 50, 55 years later. So we initially started working on this in late 2019. We got 6 songs recorded the weekend before the pandemic hit in March of 2020, including the new versions of Red Rubber Ball, the Cyrkle, Turn Down Day, The Visit, and a new version of Feeling Groovy, 59th Street Bridge song, which is a song they were offered in 1966 and turned down for a variety of reasons.
I didn't know that.
And then we got those released individually. And then we finally got back in the studio in fall of 2021. And with some additional sessions, it was in 2021. And then Don has been working on his own and then sending stuff to the band. And we've been this close to finishing the record all year, but there were certain things. I know Don had things that he wanted right, and the band had things they wanted right. So in the long run, I'm really happy that we put together a record that we're happy with. And I think it's my biggest joy in saying this is a Cyrkle album. This feels like a Cyrkle album. This feels like something that could sit alongside the great records, the records that I love that they made in the 60s.
Now, were all the parts recorded separately after the pandemic, or was it all done separately over the time?
We try to do as much as possible. Thankfully, we've gotten everything done for those first several songs in the studio, and we use a studio by Rusty Yannick in Johnstown, Ohio.
Okay.
And so we got as much done in that studio as possible. Don would occasionally do stuff from his studio at home. And then, but we really try to keep the band aesthetic as much as possible. And that's one thing I'll say to anybody who's interested in doing a project like this, like respect the band, respect the aesthetic, and make sure that it works for the band. Because, you know, with this band, there's a really great group of 6 guys here. And, you know, obviously some people know some names more than others, but it's a band, and you have to know that and respect that. And so I'm glad that, you know, I loved having Dean along on those last few recording sessions, including the one for Dance With Me Tonight. I think his parts really do add an extra layer to those songs. So yeah, I'm an unabashed fan. I like this band. I like this record.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. It looked like you know, and then I'm
No, I was agreeing with him.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
one thing I skipped over in the little history here, and then we go, of course, we're going to talk about the current album again. But you did manage to put out a live album in 2017 called Full Cyrkle, and I guess everybody except for Dean's on this one, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
How did that one come about?
I'll take that one, guys. So before we did that show, we had just been on conference calls with Don explaining the business model, nothing much about the art side of things. And there were 2 90-minute calls, and that's when Don on the second call said, you know, you seem like nice men. Think I'm coming. I'm gonna give this a try. And so he flies to our hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and we meet with a guy who's at that time a manager for us. And he told us that we needed to do certain things. And so we gave him all those materials. We took photos and things of that nature, gave him a package, and he went down and he got us a agency out of Nashville called Buddy Lee Attractions. So now that we had this, we needed to put together a package for them. And we really felt like the best thing to do is to get a concert put together. So we rented out a theater. We rented out camera people. We had a 3 and 4 camera shoot. We had a 24-track machine that we purchased. And then we just opened the theater up to anybody who would want to come see the show. We filled the house up. And then we put on a legitimate show. And it was, that recording is the very first live recording of any Cyrkle concert that I'm aware of, Don. But it's also this unit's first live performance on it. The only difference was Roscoe was our bass player, Mike Roscoe, and he passed from pancreatic cancer about 1.5 years after that. Right. So the rest of us were all on that album. Yeah.
And you've gone, have you been, how have you toured since? I mean, you obviously took a break during the pandemic. So, I mean, so what years were you touring, and then when did you stop, and are you touring now?
The answer would be yes and yes. I'm thinking back to, I think our first stage show was maybe October 17, guys, in New Jersey.
Yes. Lakewood, New Jersey,
Strand.
2017.
Yeah. And then that was one of those, somebody couldn't do the show. So they said, well, we got this band over here and played together a long time. And they put us on, and we did very well. And the promoter was really happy with us. And so he started hiring us more frequently. And so we had a lot of shows, to the point now that I don't know how many we've done this year, maybe 25 to 30 shows, literally from the East Coast of New York City to the West Coast in San Bernardino. And we've gone from Michigan to Florida, top to bottom. We really kind of gave the United States a good look over this year. And I don't know, guys, we're probably up to maybe 50, 60 shows, 70 shows. I don't know. With the pandemic, things got screwed up a bit.
We lost about 13 or 15 shows with the pandemic, because everything from March 1st or 2020 on was canceled. So until
Mike's right about that. The only thing I wouldn't agree with him on is the number. I think it was more than 15 if you look at all the potential that was coming about for us.
Oh yeah.
We really had to start anew and rebuild the brand again and get out there. But the guys have been hustling, and for what it's worth, I think we're all still on a honeymoon with regards to touring. There are a lot of people complain about it, but we haven't had anybody really complains about touring. It's still fun and exciting for us.
Now, do you
That's
tour with
right.
any other acts, or you just by yourself, or who
Yeah.
do you tour with?
Well, again, I'll let everybody jump in on this. I mean, we've had Gary Puckett, the Vogues, Dennis Stefano of the Buckinghams. We've done the Cowsills, Paul
The
Revere's
Raiders.
Raiders. Yeah, we've
Jane the
done
Americans.
who?
Gary
Oh,
Lewis.
yeah.
Gary
Yeah,
Lewis.
Gary Lewis often, the Jane Americans. We did the Ohio Express, the Music Explosion just recently, the Outsiders. I mean, it's a really big list, and that doesn't include the Flower Power Cruise, where God knows
Oh.
how many acts we were on with that package. On it. I mean, I'd love to keep track of that, and I do, but I wasn't ready for that number. But I'd say we probably performed about 30 to 40 people that we grew up with and admired.
Mhm.
You know, and that's kind of neat when you think about it.
Okay.
So.
And let me kind of gear a question to Don White, Scott, and Dean here, just to
Sure.
kind of get them in the conversation a little bit more. Was it difficult learning these songs? Because obviously you were later members and everything. Were you fans of the group, The Cyrkle, or is it just like, hey, I'm just doing something new? I don't know.
Mark, can I answer that question? No, go ahead.
I was aware of the songs when I was first asked to do the thing, and they said, well, why don't you come and meet Mike Lowe's camp? I said, okay, I'll go. And we had lunch, and said, oh, he was with the Cyrkle. I said, the Cyrkle. He said, Red Rubber Ball. I said, oh, okay, yeah. And as far as learning the songs, it was a pleasure to learn them. You know, I learned, little intricacies from Don Daneman, and some of the things he said, do it this way. I said, I'll screw it. I'll do it my way. He hasn't said anything since. So. No, it was a pleasure to learn the songs. It wasn't really difficult. But on the new album, the new songs, you tried to not get too far out of what the idea of the Cyrkle is.
Right.
Not try to go too far with it. And I think we achieved that. I think everyone did a really good job on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to point out that Don can say learning the old songs wasn't that difficult because he doesn't sing them.
Yeah, good point.
What you'll find real fast with all the old Cyrkle songs is they're so heavily based in harmony, and all those harmonies are so intricate that it was a lot of time and a lot of effort to come up with parts for everybody and get it to sound right, get it to sound good enough for Don, and good enough for us, to be proud of it. So yeah, there's a lot of odd chords, odd parts, odd notes in there that you wouldn't expect, but it sounds so good when it comes together and it's right.
And
So I knew of the Cyrkle from back in the 60s when I was playing out, and I don't think we ever ran into each other, so to speak, but I know there was at least one time we were in Pennsylvania and the Cyrkle was down the street from where we were, and we passed the club that they were playing in, and the parking lot was full, and we got to where we were going, which was only a couple miles away, and it was like 5 or 10 cars. So I knew they had something going, but we really loved their music back then. And especially, we were big fans of Turn Down Day, just because of the way the song was. So fast forward to, I don't know, Pat, what was it, about 2018 that you and I met and hooked up through Dale Powers, and
Yeah.
we did a couple shows together in Akron, and then also at the Villages in Florida, and of course met all the fellas then, and we gelled right away, and became good friends. And then when of course Roscoe passed, and then Mike was in the band, and then Mike got out, and they offered me the opportunity, and I was very flattered and humbled to accept that. I admire to no end the bass playing of Tommy Dawes, and so I wanted to get as close to his style and bass playing in those songs when we do them. These guys may think, well, you're not even close, buddy. But to my ear, I'm trying to get there all the time to be close. And even in the newer songs that we've done, there's just a certain feel and a certain bounciness of Tommy's playing that I've tried to incorporate rather than just learn. One example is what's the song, Pat? It's not on this album. It's on the next one. That's John Schwab's song.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody But a Fool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than learn it from the cut that I heard, I mean, I attempted again in my own ear to try and make it bouncy or a Tommy Dawes style, because I'm sincerely say that I just love his style of playing and all those old records, and wish I could have met him. But anyway, that's my take on the whole thing.
Hey, if I can make a comment on follow up on Tommy's bass playing. When the Rondells, we started out, actually, there was no bass. And when Tommy got his first bass, the only thing we cared about was to do, like if we played the twist, for instance, the bass part is simple. Boom, 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 boom. It's like nothing, just, play quarter note bass notes. And Tommy would constantly experiment with fooling around with different bass lines. And it used to really annoy me at first. Like, Tommy, you're not playing the right part, And it wasn't until Turn Down Day that he came up with that amazing, great bass part in Turn Down Day that I actually realized, wow, your fooling around was really worth it,
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mark, you mentioned or asked about learning what it was like learning some of the new songs. And so folks that get the CD and listen to it, you'll find that there's a lot of interesting bits and pieces in those songs that I think fit the Cyrkle, fit things that were done on Neon and that sort of thing. One of the ones that threw me personally at first till I realized we were working on Mike's song called We Can Find It. And we as a band are playing through, and Mike had kind of shown us the progressions and we're sort of sorting it out. And you get to a point in the song and everybody would lose one, where one is, where the downbeat is, and everybody stopped. We're sort of scratching our heads, and Mike didn't realize it at the time either. And so we kind of went back over it again. And I realized that, Mike stuck in a measure of 3 in amongst the regular 4/4 time. And so that's where everybody was tripping over losing the one,
I hadn't remembered it either. So
right, you didn't remember it either. So there's lots of little things like that, though, in the music that's on this album and some of these songs that makes them interesting to listen to. They're not just straight 4/4 pop.
Yeah. And for me, that was always one of the hallmarks of the Cyrkle was, these on level, they're pop songs, but they're more than pop songs. There's these little intricacies, the harmony parts, the guitar and bass parts. It's like, oh yeah, there's way more here. It's a much deeper cake than you initially think you're eating, and that's one of the things I always enjoyed. So I think this record is and again, the people in this band allowed us to take that further and create the record that hopefully everyone gets to listen to soon.
And does everybody have, I guess I could just have everybody just kind of go around robin, a favorite moment or a favorite track on this new album that people should be aware of when they're listening?
I'm really happy with the fact that I have 2 original songs on there that I wrote back in the 70s, actually. And
Cool.
And I've kind of updated them somewhat because they were never released. We recorded them with another band, but they were never released. And so I was just real happy to get to do those and see them, and hear them coming out on a new album. So I'm hoping people will enjoy those, and we'll see what happens with that. But I think they're really good. Everybody played really well on them, and I was really happy with the way it came out.
Yeah. And I'll say two songs also that I'm both involved in. One as a singer, and one as a writer. The Dance With Me Tonight, I just love doing that song. And we have presented it to a lot of audiences now. And we haven't missed yet. We're even being told in some cases that song is better than anything they heard in the entire show. So we're pretty happy about that song. And then I wrote a song about a guy being picked up by a girl in a bar. And that didn't happen to me last night, by the way, honey. No. However,
If it ever happened, any night.
That's right. That's right. You guys don't remember last night either. Anyway, so the guys didn't really warm up to it very well, but the one person that did was Don Daneman. And we gave it to Don, and I'm going to use this word that came out of the band. He circleized it. He took what I put together and made it sound like a Cyrkle song. And so it's very playful. There's a sense of humor to the song. And it's again, it stands out now by itself. Makes me very proud. You got all these different styles of music. And here's one too, has a little sense of humor and a little gospel-y maybe feel to some of the stuff. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And and of course you got Don's voice singing it. So it sounds very much like the Cyrkle. It's kind of cool. So those are my two.
Well, for me, I actually have a lot of things that I think are really great in it. But I guess I have to say my favorites are the two songs I got to sing with Tommy, because there's such an emotional connection there that it overrules whether you think the songs are the best or not. But I just love doing it. So I would say those are my favorite. We Can Fly and We Thought We Could Fly.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's up next, Scotty?
Yeah,
sure. For me, it's two songs. One is the one that I mentioned before, We Can Fly. It's just a really cool song, and I had a blast playing the drum track for it, and I think it just came out really, really well. The other one is our version of 59th Street Bridge song, or Feeling Groovy, which we do in our shows, and we've done since almost day one when we reunited the band. But we'd never recorded it or anything, gotten it out like we have here. And I think when we first talked about it, Don brought that story to us saying, we got offered the song, but we never actually did it. I wonder what it would sound like if the Cyrkle had done it. And I think you'll find it really does sound like what it would have been like if the Cyrkle.
Yeah, that's right. Really is.
Yeah, vocally and rhythmically and all that, I'm really, really pleased with that one.
Dean?
Okay, for me, the two are the ones that Mike referenced, and that's We Can Find It and Singing for Tomorrow. I don't have a copy of the album yet, so I think those are both on there. Right? Are they both on there? Okay.
Let's
the
see.
It's in the mail, Dean.
Okay.
They're on there, but I think it's the wrong title for Singing for Tomorrow, but that's all right.
Well, yeah, it's close.
Kidding.
It does say Singing for Tomorrow per your request, Mike. So yes.
Actually, on the list it says Sing for Tomorrow.
Well, I did fix it in the final CD.
Yeah,
yes,
I
yes.
saw
Yeah.
some of it.
It has been
It's all
corrected.
good.
Yes.
Either way, it's about Singing for Tomorrow. So.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to stir that up. But anyway, those two.
Which is weird, Mark, because you never can hear the song today. Go ahead.
Those were both, again, for me, they were very difficult to learn. And I remember many practices we were going over, and Mike would stop the song in the middle and say, no, it's you got it. It's this measure, you're not counting right. And we'd go over and over. And so I'd go home, work on it. And, finally got it, I think, to a
Oh, yeah.
presentable point. I mean, at least it's on the album.
Yeah, you did.
But anyway, I liken them to, a lot of Mike's stuff is similar to Steely Dan. Not that it sounds like Donald Fagen's stuff, but the complexity of it reminds me of that. So it was a lot of work to try and learn those, and so that was just a personal victory, so to speak.
Don?
Well, I was thinking there's one point where we were recording, and I just kind of looked around at everyone and thought, God, I'm really lucky to be here. You know, I'm having a great time, you know. And
Yeah.
so
Amen.
it sounds like a cop out, but I enjoy doing everything. Yeah, I got to do some leads, which was fun, and played also rhythm, and yeah, I mean, having Daniel there supervising and sticking his camera in your face.
I tend to do that.
Yes.
So yeah, just being with the Cyrkle and being able to record was a great thing. Yeah.
You know, if I can tell you, going back to Dance With Me tonight, the night that we recorded that, there was a certain energy in the room, and we ended up all standing behind a microphone and just clapping. And
Oh, yeah.
Daniel's in there singing with us. I mean, it was really kind of, it's during our breakdown. So if you haven't heard it yet, look for the breakdown. You can hear Daniel's voice very clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a producer singing. Yes. Yeah.
It was just neat energy. It was some really fun times in the studio, which you don't always get.
And I'll mention too that we got Charlie Colello, who produced the Cyrkle's last recordings in 1967 to do the final mix for Dance With Me Tonight. So we've got Charlie Colello back for this recording, and that's another name that is passed through the Cyrkle's history. And a lot of people know his work on the Frank Sinatra album Watertown, which is probably maybe my favorite Sinatra record. But I loved having Charlie's name on this record. So, you know, you got Charlie back, you got Tom Dawes. It's like, you know, and these guys. So yeah, darn right, it's a Cyrkle record.
That's really cool.
Now, Daniel, I asked you this separately when we did our own podcast, but I'll ask it again. So you got enough tracks to do a second album. So are you still recording, or what's going on now at this point?
We paused recording a bit to get this album done and get over the last, you know, few hurdles. But now it's something I want to, you know, when the guys are ready, and something we'll discuss soon. But I'm ready to, you know, start talking about, you know, because I know they have more material. I know Mike has more material. We have another 2 songs of Mike's recorded. And yeah, I've told them all, like, this, my involvement doesn't end with this record. So this is an ongoing project, and I look forward to what comes next. So I'll piggyback on their answers. I don't have a specific song, although I obviously have some favorites. But the day I came up with, realized that to me, I see them as an album. It's side 1 and side 2. For me, the end of side 1 is He Can Fly, and obviously We Thought Good Fly is the last song of side 2. But then I realized that Don came in with this song called We Were There, which is the story of the Cyrkle. And then I realized he'd written me the intro to bring in the new recordings of Red Rubber Ball and Turn Down Day. So on the album, you know, it's We Were There, Turn Down Day, which opened their 66 tour, Red Rubber Ball, which was almost the set closer, and then We Thought We Could Fly. So you literally get the history of the Cyrkle in 4 songs. And those are things, as someone who grew up on records and sequencing and the vibe, and why take Forever Changes by Love. It's, you know, it doesn't work if you take those songs and move them around, but it works in that sequence. And things like that make it go, yes, this the reasons why I did this whole record to begin with. Is like, okay, I'm gonna create something that no matter what happens, I'm gonna be proud of it. I hope the band is proud of it, and I think other fans are gonna go, yeah, that's really cool. So, and the friend of mine, George Harold King Jr., who did the liner notes, said that, you know, this is a record that hopefully people will be listening to in 55 years and say, this is a good record. And I heartily concur in that sentiment.
Hey, Mark, one other thing. I don't know if you've heard the album yet, but the very first thing you hear is Don Daneman singing 60 years or so. When did you record that?
It would have been, it was a demo that I did in 1959.
There.
My mom and her piano teacher took me into NOLA recording studios in New York, and I sang 8 songs, just me and a guitar. Yeah. And the idea was to try and present it to some record company and maybe have something happen. 2 of the songs I had written, and I decided at some point to do a final recording of the song, and randomly thinking that it was missing, I came across the vinyl pressing of those demos. And so the song actually starts off with my 16-year-old recording with record scratching and all, and you hear the first verse of this song, and it just edits right into the final recording, and it's a very cool little thing to have happen.
Now I understand it. Well, Daniel gave me a copy of the album, but it was all digital, so it's not on a CD or anything. And I didn't read the liner notes or anything. I just figure I will listen to it just straight through, just purely as I want to hear a good music and an album and see where it goes. And I was very impressed. And I heard little studio trickery like that. I said, I didn't know it was from 60 years ago or whatever. I just figured it was like intentional that it was recorded to make it sound old or something.
Yeah, it was right off that vinyl recording that, like I say, I thought it was gone missing, and I just came across it one day.
That's really cool.
And I was thrilled to find it. Yeah.
Very
You know,
cool.
Daniel, he might have brought a good point up about maybe we should probably put something on the album, a message or something that just says, so you know what you're listening to.
I think actually in the liner notes, it does say, original recording by
Okay.
Don Hammond. I
Okay.
did specify that. So
Good.
I just
And-
didn't read it, so don't go by me. Because like I said, I wanted to just hear the music for itself. I didn't even go by album tracks per se, by titles or anything. I just wanted to hear how everything sounded, and it had an overall good sound, and that's the main thing I was trying to get out of it, and see if this
Yeah.
matched up to listening to Neon or Red Rubber Ball or anything else. And it's a good accompaniment.
Thanks.
It works. So
yeah, thank you for
And-
saying that. That meant a lot to me. It was like I wanted this, I wanted it to live up to that bar, that the Cyrkle set in the 60s. And I really do think we pulled it off.
And I hope you continued success with the additional tracks and coming out with another album. It's always good to, keep that going, that momentum going, if you have the energy and the positive vibes and all that stuff, doing all this stuff. So,
There's been a lot of bands I've worked with through the years that I really wish had gotten to do one more record, one more recording. And if it means that I get to, be a part of these guys doing more recordings, I welcome it.
Good.
So now what's next for everybody? I know you're doing other tracks, but I mean, are you out on the road? What's 2023 look like at this point? Anybody can speak or all.
Well, we have 2 more shows in the Michigan market, and then the business kind of slows down and just nothing starts to happen again. So we're now out working to get new bookings. We just got something in Florida in the end of March, and we'll be working throughout the year to get those dates in place. That itself is not an easy job. You'd be surprised on it, but we'll be working a lot on that. But right now we don't have very much in the 2023 year yet, but
Okay.
we will.
And you're willing to tour anywhere in the States or even Canada or whatever. You could
Sure.
probably,
Unless they
probably
like
the world, but I'm not going overboard. I'm just saying,
No.
it's like, but you're free to go anywhere you want. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm speaking for the band, but I still think we have a lot of fun together on the road.
Yeah.
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 The after parties are a lot of fun.
Wow.
Now, how do you typically travel? Is it in a bus or plane or combination? Or what do you do?
It depends on where we have to go. I mean, if we have to go from Ohio to Florida, Arizona, California, we fly.
Mhm.
If it's within our region, though, it's no big deal to us just to drive. And I mean, we get up there, we get a day ahead of time. We're all rested by the time the show starts, and then we have a day to come back home. It's a lot of fun. Plus, I don't sound like nerds, but we've been doing some tourist things.
No,
And
that's
we've,
cool.
we've seen a lot of stuff that wasn't available to us if it hadn't been for being worked. Like the Grand Canyon comes to mind in one market, and Niagara Falls in another. And those weren't on any of our list of things to see, but because of the Cyrkle, we're getting to see all parts of the world we don't normally get to see.
Cool.
Well,
I'm
I
actually
hope-
hoping that they get to do some gigs in upstate New York sometime soon, because it means I get another excuse to go home.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Where I'm from
Well,
originally. So
we can talk about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope we
certainly.
get some gigs out here on the West Coast, especially in Oregon,
Yeah.
and it'd be nice if you're really local, like Eugene, Springfield. A lot of people, they somehow avoid us. They go to San Francisco, Bay Area, and then Seattle, and it's like, because both are like very far away. So if you could get
Oh,
a Portland gig or something in the middle, that'd be great.
well, I think I have your email, but if you get a chance, I'll write you. Send me some leads out there,
All right.
and we can put together a package of acts, including, of course, us.
Cool.
That we get a headliner and things like that for you. And if you have pent up demand, that would be great.
All
Yeah,
right.
and if you get the chance, please see this band live. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And as for me, definitely working on new recordings with these guys next year. I have a couple of books I'd like to finish. A couple of things I've written for other artists. One is kind of my own story of my own strange life that a couple of universities have expressed interest in. And then I'm kind of looking forward to just seeing what happens next. So and maybe taking some time off of photography here in Charlotte and see if I can still be a traveling music photographer. I've missed it.
I'm working on a book too, Mark. And I'm telling you, when I finish it, I'm going to start reading another one right away.
Yeah, reading is a lot of work. It's a lot
It
of
is. It's tough.
All right. Well, that kind of wraps it up a little bit, but I guess the one thing to ask, and anybody can answer or whatever, just how does one get in contact with the Cyrkle? The website, Facebook? Who wants to take it?
All of the above.
Okay. So if you want to promote that, give a quick plug of what the website is and email or anything else like that.
The website is www.thecyrkle.com. Just what you would think. And Scotty kind of takes care of that behind the scenes for us, our drummer. And people can reach out if they have specific questions or such. Well, I had a hard time finding Don Dan when I was trying to build this band back together, but they have no problem seeming to find him, and the fans do. So so we can do that. And of course, Facebook is a big tool right now.
Yeah.
We have two Facebook pages out there. One that somebody put up years and years and years ago, and we were able to secure responsibility for it. And then we put up the one when the band reunited. The second of the two is the one that most people go to, and we keep our schedules on both, but we do a lot of updates and stories, etc., photos and stuff on that, the one we created. And we would love to get more people to come out and like us. That number keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then on YouTube, there's a lot of video of us out there now. People have filmed us. Some is not such good quality, but some are real good.
And the new album, how does one get that? I mean,
you can go either cyrkle.com. You can go to, I recommend going to their Facebook page and finding, there's a couple links where you can buy the record directly, or you can email the band directly, and stay tuned for more news on that. We hope to have some more information soon. But yeah, please go to cyrkle.com or their Facebook page and buy a record, and we'll be glad you did.
Yeah.
And is there any other merchandise or nifty things that you can find on the website too?
On the website, Scotty, we got to talk about that. We got to get stuff up on the website.
T-shirts, posters.
We got it all.
Keychain. And at our shows, we have all of that, of course.
You email the Cyrkle and ask for anything you want. There you go.
Yeah.
Very cool.
One thing that they did create this year was the little red rubber balls. You can actually, with their logo.
Wait, I can get one for you. Hang on. I'll be right back with one here. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
People love these things, and you can even find a couple on eBay, but don't buy them there. Buy them from the band. So, but yeah, it's one of those. Pat told me this idea. I was like, is that really going to work? And my God, it does. So go figure. But Pat, do you have one there? There it is.
It's a red
I'd have never dreamed these things would be important to people, but they are. Can you see the word very well?
Gigantic.
Oh, it's upside down, but
okay. Sorry about that. That looked like cankles to me or
The
something.
cankle.
Is it still upside down?
No, you're fine.
They look like basketballs.
Now it's upside down again. It's the,
Yeah, hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Pat, when you held it up, it looked like you were holding up a beach ball. It looked like huge.
Yeah.
It's a little rubber ball.
Here's how you guys think it looks. But in reality,
There you
it's
go.
the
Yeah.
palm of your hand, and they're
Actually,
tasty.
it's larger than I thought it was. It's like I thought it might be like a red nose, but it's actually a substantial ball.
You mean like this?
Yes.
You can make a red nose out of it.
Yeah, I want to go to CVS and have them for their or Walgreens for their campaign. I think
Right, they have the
Rubber
Red
Ball
Nose
would be
Day,
a very
that's
good
right.
idea.
Mhm.
So that's where my head goes is marketing.
There you go.
Or Target.
And Target. I think Target would be good.
All the
So-
possibilities, all the tie-ins.
Yeah.
Anyway, Well, I guess that's wraps it up. I mean, if you want, does anybody want to say any final things before we go, or that's usually how we wrap up the show. Is just
Sure.
everyone promote and plug what they got, and we'll take it from there.
Well, I've been looking at the screen of people here. There's no question I'm the best looking guy.
I usually
No
just have a camera
bias,
in front of
right?
my face. That usually looks a lot better.
Wait a minute. Now, does that look like me?
Very
We appreciate all the fans. Let me tell you, they are wonderful.
Yeah.
And God bless them all out there, and keep telling people about us, because a lot of people know the song, but they don't remember the name of the band. And that could be Alzheimer's, but it could just be a case of branding also. So we're working on that.
But I'll say this has been a real fun, real joy for me. And like I said, I'm a fan as well. So
Yeah.
please come check out this record. Please come check out their show and stay in touch.
All right,
Absolutely.
very good. And I'll have to admit, doing these new recordings, being in touch with Daniel, has made me a bigger fan. I mean, I knew the song, Red Rubber Ball,
Yeah.
and I knew my Camaro song, but I didn't know much else, and then I kind of went into it deeper, and I go, hey, you got some really cool stuff here. So,
Oh, neat.
all right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I look
Nice to
forward to
meet you,
seeing
buddy.
you. I hope you get out to the West Coast. We'll try
we
to make
will.
some dates up here. And I want to thank everyone. I can mention you really quickly. Mike Luskamp,
Well, thank
Don
you for
White,
having us on.
Pat McLaughlin, Dean Castron, Scott Langley, let's say your name correctly, Donald Danneman, and Daniel Coston, everyone here from the Cyrkle. And I thank you all for having a good show and being on the show on the Fun Ideas podcast.
Thank you.
And this is Mark Arnold, and we will see you next time.